All right, how's it going? Getting some questions from people on Bash processing related to your current programming assignment, homework 7. So I wanted to go through and just kind of give you some sample code slash examples slash tips or hints that might help you with some of the Bash coding. Sample code is always a nice way to get ideas, and since people are looking up sample code anyway, I'd kind of rather you look at sample code using the things that we've been talking about. So um, let's start with a date command. All right. So we know, the basic date command. You just say date, and it shows you the current date. You can change the format of the date command by saying, for example, show me um, the current year, and it will just show me, 2020. Or I can say, show me the month and the day, and it would just show me, November 11th. Um, and so that's one thing that's potentially useful. The other thing with date is we can trick date into pretending that it's a different date. So for example, if I want to do some processing on, Valentine's Day 2001, I can say date dash D 2001-0214, and it'll show me, that it's Wednesday, February 14th, 2001. All right, and then if I wanted to pull that off into a particular format, I could say, show me this date with a %y slash %m slash %d, and it'll show me 2001 slash 2 slash 14. The other thing that's nice to keep in mind with date is that we can get date to tell us with a %s the number of seconds since January 1st, 1970. Okay, why is that useful? By itself, maybe not terribly interesting, but to find two dates and compare them, we can make good use of this. For example, we can take one date, see how many seconds that date is from January 1st, 1970. Take a second date, see how many seconds that is. Take the difference in seconds, divide by 3600, divide by 24. You got the number of days in between two dates. So that can be useful sometimes. Probably that part's not so important for homework 7, but it's something to keep in mind. All right. So date will do a lot of processing for us, and mainly think about date, date dash D followed by a YYYY, month day day. Think of date with these plus modifiers to change the output format, and keep in mind %s for number of seconds from the beginning of time. Where time begins January 1st, 1970. All right, capturing things from dialog. We've played around with this before. So here's a basic calendar dialog. It says hello, it lets me type in a date or click a date, and it just kind of spews the output on my screen right here. If we want to capture that, what do? We say, D1 equals back quote, put in the dialog command, and then do an output FD1, close your command with a back quote, and now when I select a date, let's select Thanksgiving, right? That value that's selected goes into whatever variable we have. So something like this is going to be, all over your scripts. It's a really good way to interact with the user and find out what they typed in. All right, so changing formats with awk. So we have our date. It's, date A slash month slash, and then a 4-digit year. Let's say we want to turn that into just a plain old YYYYMMDD. We can do that with awk. Okay, all these commands, you can build them up. Okay, so we can say echo $D1, pipe that into awk. We have to tell it to separate our fields with a slash. And then we'll write our program, print $3, $2, $1. There's your date. All right, so this echoed this string, put it into awk, and said my fields are separated by slash. So this is field 1, $1. This is field 2, $2. This is field 3, $3. And our awk program just sent print $3. That's the 2020. $2 is 11. $1 is 26. There's your output. Now if I want to save that in a variable, what do? I just say something like D2 equals back quote, all of that stuff. And now when I look at my variable D2, that's got my reformatted date. So awk, right? Commands like this will let you basically break a line up into fields based on some field separator, and then rearrange them in your output, or drop out certain fields, or do whatever you like, right? And remember, if you just wanted the year, for example, you know, I could just do this. And now I'm just saying, you know, print the third field of this original string, which is 2020, that's the year. Once you have your date in this format, it can be treated like an integer in Bash, right? So if I want to know if one date comes after another, you can do things like if bracket $D2 is greater than $D1, right? And just finish out your if statement like that. So that's another useful thing to do. All right, let's talk about grep. Grep is a really easy way to search inside a file. So let's make a file, and I don't know, I'll just make a list of things to do. Go shopping, walk the dog, sleep, go to class, write a lecture, go to the bank. Nobody does these things anymore, but that's okay. You know, pretend there's dates and times and things like that, and this is your calendar. Let's say you want to know if you have any appointments related to shopping. So if I just say grep for shopping inside file, it'll bring up this line saying go shopping. Okay. If I want to see all the lines that don't refer to shopping, I can reverse this by saying grep-v shop, and it'll show me all the lines that don't have shopping in there. So if I want to know every appointment where I'm going somewhere, I can say grep go to and search in my file, and says I got to go to class and I got to go to the bank. All right. Now that's not, you know, you're probably not going to search your appointment calendar by keywords like that, but imagine instead of searching for, you know, shopping or go to, you're searching for a particular date. So if in the beginning of each line of your appointment you have, you know, say a YYYYMMDD, and you want to find all the things that you're doing on a certain date, you can use grep, right? So let's put some dates in here. Right? And these don't have to be ordered. They could, you know, be in whatever order. But let's say you want to know what you're doing on the 18th. Right? Just run a grep. And if you want to be really sure that this is a date you're picking up, right, put a caret in the beginning. So now if my file has something like this, go to the bank and ask about 2020-1118 statement, right? If I just do a grep for 2020-1118, I'm going to bring up this appointment that's not actually an appointment for the 18th, but it mentions, you know, the 18th in the description of the appointment. So if I do a grep with this caret in the beginning, I'll only get the lines that begin with 2020-1118. So that's an easy way to pull out information on a particular date. And again, if you want to see everything that you're not doing on the 18th, you can reverse this with a -v switch. And so now I've got all my other dates. So grep is a useful thing to keep in mind. All right. Quick editing of a line with sed. Suppose that you're processing, you know, your file or the return from a dialog or something like that, and you have a line which is, you know, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And suppose you wanted those spaces to be something else, like commas, for example. Okay, really easy application of sed. Okay, and this is probably the most useful version of sed, and it's probably the only version of sed you need for this assignment. Sed, quote, and then we type in a substitution line like we would have in VI. Substitute space with comma, do it everywhere on the line. Okay, so this is going to read from standard in, and everywhere it finds a space, it's going to replace it with a comma. Okay, and it's a very straightforward substitution. Just find a space, replace it with a comma, do that everywhere. So if I want to do that on this variable line, right, I can echo $line and pipe it into sed and put it into do that replacement. I'm going to put this in quotes just because I don't want anything weird to happen, right? And I'll pipe that into sed, and my spaces got changed into commas. If I wanted my line to end with a semicolon, right, I could take that and I could pipe that into sed and say substitute the last piece of the line with a semicolon, and now I got a semicolon. And if I want to save that in a new variable, let's call it new line, I'll just put this whole expression inside back quotes and assign new line the result of that. And there's new line. So sed's a real powerhouse utility. It's great for doing those kinds of replacements. All right. Reading from a file. We've done this in class also, but let's put it in here because it's almost certainly something that you're going to want to do. So we've got our file here, right? Let's go ahead and read from that. So I'll make a script called read it. All right, let's just read from the file and show each line. So here's the structure for reading from a file. While read, and then you need the name of a bash variable. I'm just going to call it temp do, and I'm just going to echo the value of this variable. And I'm going to say done less than the name of the file. If this is a file sitting under /temp/calendar/myname, you'd say done less than /temp/calendar/myname, right? It's just a path to a file. But the way this is written right now, what it's going to do, it's going to basically read one line at a time from this file, and each line that it reads will be assigned to the variable temp. And then I'll go into the body of my loop, and I can do whatever I want with that. Okay, so let's make this executable, and let's go ahead and read it. And you can see it's reading the contents of my file one line at a time. All right. What can we do with that? We can do pretty much anything that we want. So for example, let's say that I want to build a big long single string that shows everything I have to do on the 18th. Okay, so I want to say go to class and sleep. So we can do this with grep and so on and so forth, but we can also do this one line at a time. All right, so let me get rid of this echo, and let's do this. Is this an appointment for 2020, November 18th? Okay, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to echo that line. I'm going to pipe it into grep. I'm going to search for 2020-1118. And I'm going to take whatever it finds in that line, and I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to send the output to dev null, which is just a black hole. But grep will set a return status. Remember, most commands give us a return status. And if a command is successful, it returns 0 generally. All right, so I'm going to say if $0 equals 0, that means grep did find a match in this line. Then I'm going to go ahead and echo this. And so I'll echo $temp. And there's the end of my if statement. Alright, so now if I run read it, I only see the lines from my file that contain 20201118. Well, we got our bogus line in here. Why? Because we used a simplified pattern on grep. So let's just search for this. And no harm, and often a good idea, to put these search patterns inside quotation marks. Once you start getting into strange characters like $signs and so on, you want probably single or double quotation marks. So now if I do that, it suppresses that bogus record. All right. Now suppose all that I want is the actual appointment. Right, so I don't want to see this 20201118. What can we do? Well, let's clean up temp. Okay, so let's do something like this. Temp 2 equals echo temp. And I'm going to replace the first 9 characters with nothing. Now the first 9 characters are year, month, day, and a space. Alright, so if I do this substitution, I echo my original input, and I replace the first 9 characters with nothing, right, that will give me just the appointment itself. I'm going to put that in a variable called temp2, and I'm going to print both of those out one after another so we can see the action. So if I run read it now, you can see this was the original line from my input file. This is the cleaned up line, which just has an appointment. All right, suppose you want to make a big long string of those for whatever reason. What can we do? Let's make a big long string separated by pipes. So I'll make a output variable, and this is like a running sum. This is something we're going to add to each time we go through the loop. Okay, so output is just an empty line, and every time we do this, let's suppress these echoes, but let's do the following. Output equals $output followed by temp2 followed by a pipe. So I'm going to take the current output string, I'm going to add our new appointment to it, and I'm going to throw a pipe at the end. And then when we're done processing our file, let's print this out. We'll just say list of appointments, and we'll print out this one variable. Right, so there's a list of my appointments. Go to class and sleep. And if we don't want that trailing pipe on the end, right, what do? Output equals echo $output, pipe into sed, substitute a pipe at the end of the line with nothing, put that in back quotes, assign it to output. And now we get our pipe separated list of appointments, but without that trailing pipe at the end. So this is just, you know, an example of what you can do, but it's basically taking different pieces and putting them together to do whatever it is you need to do. The last thing is adding output to a file. So suppose we want to build a new file of appointments from something, so the user is going to type in some information, right, and so on and so forth. So let me get rid of all of this. Right, now the appointment and the date will be coming from, you know, dialogs, and you'll be doing some processing on it and so on. But just for the sake of argument, let's just go ahead and have the user type in an appointment and type in a date. We'll have them put in the date first. No, look, that's fine. And remember, we have this appointment file that we've got, right? A simplified file here with a 8-digit date and then an appointment description. So how can we add to that? Well, we can just echo, the date followed by a space followed by the appointment, and we can say greater than file, and that should add that appointment to the end of the file. So here's our file right now. Let's say read it. We'll make a new appointment. And my appointment is to eat food, and the date is 2020-1126. Right? Now if I look at file, I've got a new appointment at the bottom. Of course, you need to be very careful about this. You don't want the person to put in a date that's not a valid date, right? But you're doing, checking and cleansing on the input maybe, and if you're reading a date from a calendar dialog, right, you're going to take the resulting string and put it together in the correct way so that you get a YYYYMMDD. And there you go. If you need to have things sorted, because sometimes it's easier with things sorted, if I just say sort file, it will sort alphabetically, but if my dates are all well behaved, meaning I have leading zeros, and alphabetical sorting is also a numeric sorting. And so now this is sorted according to dates. It does not change the original file. Sort basically reads from standard in and sends the sorted output to standard out. If I say sort and I specify a file, it reads from that file and it displays the sorted output on standard out. So if I want the sorted output to go into a file, I have to use a redirection. So I can put this into file 2, right? My original file is unsorted, but file 2 is sorted. And if that's what I want to use for file, what can I do? I can just rename file 2 to file. And now if I look at file, it's a sorted version of itself. So you have to use this temporary in here, right? Sort your file into a temporary and then rename that temporary, move it on top of the original. Or move the original to a copy, sort the copy into the original. All right. So that's just some things to think about, okay? There's a whole mixed bag of capabilities in what I've shown you. I'm not saying that you're going to use the particular statements that I've typed or the particular constructs that I've shown you, but those should get you thinking. If you're feeling like you're stuck on how to do something, those should help get you thinking in different directions, right? And hopefully find some way to put things together, some of this stuff, some other stuff that to put those things together to accomplish whatever you're trying to do in your script. So I hope that helps. Have a good rest of the day. I will see you in class Thursday. All right, thanks.